It all started in a small bar, one of those that seem to exist outside of time. It was a discreet place, with warm lights and an old jukebox that played songs that seemed to know exactly what I was feeling. Before continuing the story, I ask you for a second to give a like to the video. It doesn't bother you at all and it helps me a lot. Let's continue. I had gone in just to escape the rain, but I never imagined that decision would change everything. I sat at the bar and ordered a coffee. I'm not a fan of strong drinks, and the night called for nothing but something simple and warm. As I waited, I saw him for the first time. He was at the other end of the bar, with a glass of whiskey in his hand and a blank stare. There was something about him that intrigued me, a mixture of melancholy and mystery that I couldn't ignore. It wasn't until the jukebox changed songs that our gazes met. It was brief, but intense, as if we both felt a connection that could not be explained in words. He smiled first and raised his glass slightly, as if toasting to that serendipity. "First time here?" he asked, approaching my side. His voice was calm, but there was something in his tone that immediately put me at ease. Dragged on until the bar began to empty. The jukebox had already gone through several songs, but when an old plus began to play, Alex gave me a knowing look. "This is my favorite," he said with a smile. "Why?" "Because it has a nostalgic feel to it, but at the same time, it makes you feel hopeful. As if to say that things can always get better." Her answer surprised me. Behind his relaxed appearance, there was a depth that invited me to get to know him better. When the clock struck 2 a.m., we both knew it was time to go. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the streets clean and bright under the streetlights. Alex insisted on walking me home. We walked leisurely, talking about trivial things but sensing, in the silence between words, that something important was being done. The next few days were a mixture of waiting and pent-up excitement. We met again in the same bar, as if it were our secret place. Each meeting was a discovery. Alex showed me sketches of lyrics he was writing, confessing that he had not yet found the courage to sing them in public. I, for my part, showed him a book I had recently restored, a diary full of poems written by a woman who lived centuries ago. "It's amazing how words can survive time," I said, as he carefully turned the pages. "It's like music. Sometimes I think all we do is try to leave an echo, something that someone else might hear someday." There was something about the way he said it, a mixture of humility and passion, that made me want to stay with him longer. And, little by little, our meetings became part of my routine, although every time I saw him, I felt like the world stopped a little. One night, Alex took me to a park near the bar. He had brought his guitar, something he always carried with him but had never before brought out in front of me. Under the starlight, of a story I didn't want to stop writing. There was a rhythm in us, a melody that built with every word, every silence, and every note of his guitar. It was after one of those nights in the park when Alex told me something unexpected. "Lena, I have something to show you. Would you like to come to my house?" His invitation took me by surprise, but there was something in his voice that made me feel safe. I nodded, and minutes later we were walking home. Pausing briefly to invite you to subscribe and leave a comment, I continued. Her home was a small apartment in an old building with exposed brick walls and large windows that let in moonlight. As I walked in, I noticed that every corner reflected his personality, guitars leaning against the walls, shelves full of cluttered notebooks and books, and a table covered with sheet music. There was a lovely clutter, as if creativity was floating in the air. "This is my refuge," he said, as he set his guitar down next to an armchair. "I want you to see something." He led me to a corner where there was an old piano covered with papers. He carefully pushed some of them aside and sat down in front of the keys. He never played this in front of anyone, but with you it's different. His fingers began to glide across the keys, creating a melody that enveloped me completely. It was a mixture of soft and passionate notes, as if he was telling me something I couldn't put into words. I sat on the couch watching him lose himself in the music, and I knew I was seeing a side of him that few had ever known. When he finished, the silence in the room was almost sacred. "Alex, that was beautiful." "It's for you," he said, turning to me with a smile I'll never forget. "Every note is for you." At that moment, I knew I was in love. I didn't need any more words or explanations. It was him, and Alex took my hand, leading me to his couch. We sat down, and without a word, he slowly leaned in until our lips met. His kiss was soft, as if he was tasting something sacred, and I responded with the same tenderness. The kiss dragged on, full of sensations I had never experienced before. When we parted, her eyes searched mine, as if she wanted to make sure everything was okay. Lena whispered, and in that moment I knew there was no place in the world I would rather be. We stayed together that night, sharing caresses, whispered words, and promises that didn't need to be said aloud. At dawn, with the sunlight streaming through the curtains, I knew something had changed in me. Alex wasn't just someone I shared moments with. He was someone I wanted to build a future with. I stood next to him, and Alex wrapped me in a firm, warm embrace. We stayed like that, feeling the tranquility of being in each other's arms. His accompanied breathing was like another melody, and I closed my eyes, allowing myself to enjoy the moment. Between whispers, we shared confidences and caresses that spoke louder than words. When I awoke, the morning light filled the room with soft warmth. Alex was still asleep next to me, with a peaceful expression that made me smile. I watched his chest rise and fall sympathetically, and realized how comfortable I felt in his presence. We were silent for a few moments, enjoying each other's company. We didn't need to speak to understand that something had changed between us, something deeper than words. Despite the calm, a slight sense of uncertainty hung in the air, as if we both knew that not everything could be so simple. Alex began to stir, slowly waking up. His eyes opened and he looked up at me with a sleepy smile. "Good morning," he murmured, his voice still scratchy from sleep, where the light played with the shadows of the curtains. "Are you staying today?" he asked, as if it wasn't something we needed to discuss, as if time together was as natural as breathing. I looked at him, trying to decipher if he wanted me to stay, or if he was just asking out of habit. "Yes, I think so," I answered with a smile, not quite knowing what my answer meant. However, the truth was that I wanted to stay. The time shared with him seemed to be the only certainty I could hold on to in such an uncertain world. Even though we saw each other from time to time, things between us were slowly changing. There was a special connection, but we also knew that not everything could be perfect, that we would have to face difficult or uncomfortable moments at some point. Alex reached over and took my hand. "How about we make some breakfast?" he said, changing the subject and drawing a small smile on his face. It was his way of making the silence not awkward. I nodded, enjoying how simple it was to be together. I knew that even though our relationship had no definite direction yet, at that moment there was nothing I wanted more than to keep sharing these little moments with him. After a while, the mood in the room began to change, as if routine was gently calling to us. We knew that our encounters, though profound, could not last forever. Sometimes, life had to take its course, and there were decisions we could not avoid. I got up and began to dress him while Alex remained seated on the bed, watching me silently. I knew what was coming, but I didn't dare look directly at him. Deep down, I had to see sadness in his eyes to make it all more real, more painful. When I finished, Alex came over, standing next to me. "Are you leaving now?" he asked, without forcing his voice, but with a note of doubt that I couldn't ignore. I nodded, looking into his eyes, searching for a comfort that perhaps existed only in the idea of that promise. "Although I don't know how it will be, but I promise I will not forget you." He pulled me a little closer, and his lips found mine in a soft kiss, filled with a tenderness that needed no words. It wasn't goodbye, but it was closure, the recognition that what we shared had been real. But that we both had to move on with our lives, though always carrying some of what we had. I walked away from him with a sigh, my heart pounding hard in my chest. "See you soon, Alex," I said with a small but sincere smile. Without looking back, I walked towards the door. My soul still wanted to stay, but my mind knew that, even if we saw each other from time to time, that chapter was closing. Alex looked up at me from the bed, his expression serene, yet with a slight melancholy in his eyes. "We'll see each other," he repeated, as if saying it to himself to make sure the words wouldn't vanish in the wind. Though our lives would take different paths, there would always be something that would bind us together, something we could never forget.